Hi, everybody. It's Jane Hobson here, managing editor at PAX International Magazine. And today I have two special guests with me. I have Amanda Berg and Raquel Barron of Type 1 Together. Type 1 Together is a diabetes company that offers support and community for people living with type 1 diabetes, which is a health condition where the body's immune system mistakenly attacks insulin producing cells in the pancreas. Thank you both for joining me today. So, Raquel, you have lived with type 1 diabetes, also called T1D, since you were 5 years old. And Amanda, you are a former NICU nurse and a mother to a T1D child. In the aviation industry, we do talk about special meals a lot, but I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to sort of discuss a conversation that's been missing, and that's specifically passengers with diabetes. So it's a very niche and specific topic, but it is a very important one. So, Raquel, why don't we start with you? What are some main concerns when selecting beverages in a flight as someone with T1D?
Well, I think a huge misconception around type 1 is that you cannot have sugar, but the truth is that you're trying to keep your blood sugars in a very specific range, and sometimes it will drop low, sometimes it's a little bit higher. And so, depending on what's going on in that exact moment, you're going to need different things. So, being able to reach for those higher sugar options if you're dropping on a flight, which can also be a little bit scarier for families and for myself too, if you're dropping on a flight. That's really important, but then also having lower sugar options is really nice for those times where your blood sugar is higher. Movement typically will lower blood sugar, but if you're just sitting there for hours, you can tend to see higher numbers. And so having those lower carb options is also really helpful.
Okay. I think this is so interesting because, like I had said before, I didn't know a lot about diabetes before we started this conversation. Amanda, same question for you then. What are some concerns from the maybe perspective of a parent traveling with a child with T1D?
Yeah, so we've actually traveled quite a bit with our young daughter who's been living with diabetes since she was 2 years old. She's now 5.5. And the main concern that I have is, are we going to have enough quick access to high sugar beverages or snacks if her blood sugar goes low? Because an extreme low blood sugar can result in loss of consciousness. And if it's severe enough and not taken care of, then seizure activity. So that's where a lot of the anxiety surrounding flights and flying and traveling with diabetes comes into play, especially for those of us with young kids who are unpredictable in their wants and needs, right? So that's the main concern. And then the other thing is when it comes to sitting on an airplane and receiving these snacks and receiving these beverages, I need to have access to my daughter's insulin pump, or when she was getting just injections through like shots, I needed to then prepare those shots to give her an injection on an airplane seat, middle of the flight, and that was a little bit challenging. So I think that having more options than just like water or a diet soda, especially for a young child, would be helpful in those scenarios where parents aren't really comfortable with giving a ton of insulin to cover a very sugary drink.
Yeah. What other than, I think you had given examples, water or a diet soda, what other beverage options are available?
Those are the only ones I can think of.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, I'm sure there's probably tea as an option, which a young child is not interested in.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it would have to be any sort of diet option, and nothing is sticking out to me, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a perfect segue into the next question. Then I was going to ask you, do you find that airlines offer enough sugar-free or low carb beverage options? What would you like to see more of, or maybe less?
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely not. There's not a ton, but an important point here as well is that everyone has different management styles and different wants and needs, and those wants and needs can change in a matter of minutes. So, in terms of when we're on an airplane with my young daughter, my husband and I have a unique management style where she has access to an insulin pump. So it's easier to get her the insulin into her body quickly than drawing up an injection and actually giving her a shot. So we typically say yes to the higher carb options because we treat it like, an exciting experience. But if we are ever in a situation where she is already on the higher end, or if her blood sugars are starting to skyrocket and really go super high to dangerous high levels, then we do want um, other options that aren't just carbonated, Diet Cokes.
Yeah.
So that might look like a lower carb juice or flavored waters. My kids call them spicy waters, the sparkling waters. Yeah. Uh, those would be awesome because then we can encourage fluid intake with minimal sugar, and all that fluid intake is going to help bring down the higher blood sugar while we're midair.
Okay. Okay. I'm learning a lot over here. Um, Raquel, same question for you as an adult who, unlike children with the unpredictability aspect of what they might want, are there enough options that you need? What would you like to see more or less of in flight?
Yeah, so growing up, I remember I always wanted to order the cranberry apple juice. And my mom also had the similar mindset of trying to give me the insulin for the things that I want. I also think there's a bigger mental health conversation to be had there in relationship with food as well, which is another huge reason why this really does matter. And so I would get that drink. And then eventually, as I got older, I just realized every single time I was spiking into the two or three hundreds. And it was really hard to bring that down when you're just sitting on a flight. And so I kind of cut that off. And from then on, I've just ordered water. And now thinking about it more, it would be really nice to have other options, whether that's like a lower carb lemonade. I mean, obviously there's sodas now. I've never been a huge fan of soda. So I agree with Amanda. Things like flavored water and yeah, just other options like that would be really, really nice because sugar in drinks, although it's great when your blood sugar is low, it's great because of how fast acting it is, which also means that if you're already on the higher end and you're sitting there and you're just gulping it down, you're gonna see a very quick spike and you're not gonna feel great and it's gonna be hard to bring it back down. So that would be really cool to see.
Okay, okay. And then the other element, just something that we talk about at PAX International very often, is the actual passenger experience. So if you wanted to have a certain drink, ideally you should have access to that. And airlines do spend a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to determine what kind of options they need for passengers in flight who might have special meal requirements. In the case of beverages for passengers with diabetes, like this specific topic that we're chatting about, what would you both want to share, in your opinion, as the most important message that airlines need to understand? Amanda, let's start with you, and then Raquel, you can jump right in afterward.
I think the main takeaway here when we're talking about type 1 diabetes specifically is that, like I mentioned earlier, it is always a moving target, and everyone has different management styles and very unique needs. And those needs to manage your blood sugars so that you're safe, not even healthy, but just safe, can change in an instant. And so you might spend the first half of your flight really just needing a sugar-free option. And then eventually, some insulin that you took 2 hours ago when you were eating a meal in the airport is now really affecting your body, and you're suddenly crashing and you're entering a dangerously low state. And you want to have access to something very fast acting and high in sugar. And so having a variety of options in both scenarios is super helpful because part of living with this disease process is the fact that you're different, right? And so the more options there are, the more complete your experience feels. Um, and yeah, you just have access to everything you need to feel safe and then thoroughly enjoy your travels.
Yeah, absolutely. Raquel, over to you. It looks like you're on mute. There we go.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
I totally agree with everything Amanda said. I mean, I think the variability is just such a big piece of it that people don't understand. And it can be pretty frustrating living with type 1 because a lot of times we get just labeled as a stereotypical diabetic, which it's not, fair to put that on anyone, no matter what type of diabetes you live with. There's so much nuance. And like Amanda said earlier, everyone's management is so, so different. And so having the understanding from people that you need different things at different times. It's not always that you can't have sugar and being able to choose those things based on how you're feeling and just what you want, because that is a fun part of flying is getting to just enjoy it and, have the fun drinks.
Absolutely, absolutely. It sounds like for airlines, a little bit more information and knowledge about T1D could be useful. So it's excellent to have Type 1 together as that resource. I want to thank you both again for joining me today. I have with me Amanda Berg and Raquel Barron of Type 1 Together. This has been an insightful conversation, and I'm really excited that we're going to be sharing this with our readership. For PAX International, I'm Jane Hobson.